Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Wavelength.
Mental illness doesn't have to be a life sentence.
Alcohol addiction, abuse, misuse is the same all over the globe.
Sparking the combos about Adelaide.
So it made me feel very confident that if we did have it in the state, we were going to know about it.
You should be having.
There'll be guys that are trained, but they don't feel like they're good enough to take their shirt off.
Almost everyone is a culprit of doom scrolling. Anyone who has a mobile phone.
On Fresh 92.7.
Welcome to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. I'm your host, David, and tonight I am joined by my good friend, Hamish. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, good, man. Yourself?
Very good. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty good, pretty chill. Just spent some time with the 3 Valentines in my life, my partner and my 2 little girls.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just had some time together, went and saw a movie, all that, usual stuff.
You'd love to see it.
Love to. What about yourself?
I went out for Valentine's Day lunch yesterday, which was delicious.
Yeah.
And apart from that, not a whole lot.
Yeah, sounds pretty good. So tonight on Wavelength, we're chatting with some brilliant people who've started new bars and venues despite the pandemic. It's no secret that Adelaide's hospo scene has had a hard time over the last 12 months, but that hasn't stopped a bunch of cool-headed risk takers from building brand new things.
Wavelength is also going to explain the Funtea fiasco, but next we're looking into the Adelaide Metropolitan Fire Service strike. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
With limited resources, including appliances ageing and breaking down and no plans for replacements, meaning problems faced by the MFS are compounding, the Firefighters Union has appealed to the Marshall government for increased funding. Arj spoke with Max Adlam, the State Secretary of the United Firefighters Union, to find out more about the situation.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
I'm joined by Max Adlam, who's with the United Firefighters Union, who's calling on the government due to the poor condition in which the MFS has been left. Max, what can you tell me about the worrying issue?
Our members, after extensive consultative process in 2019, told us that one of their very major concerns is the level of resourcing within the MFS. And that extends to particularly the fleet of trucks that they work with. They look lovely, big red shiny vehicles that arrive very promptly at emergencies. However, that fleet is actually well past the age that is set by the government for each of the trucks to be turned over. So that's 15 years. We've got trucks that are much more than double that era. We're also talking about the equipment on those trucks and that's made available to our members to go about their work of protecting the community. We're also talking about training and personnel in order to do the job in a professional and safe manner.
How many would you say are past their used by date?
It's over 100 vehicles in the fleet, and it's just over 40 that are well past that age.
So that's almost half.
Yes, it is. It's a little below half, but they're widely spread as well. So the older vehicles tend to go out into the regional area. So at the moment, there's one that's, I believe, over 34 years old out at Renmark, for example. It's an old dairy truck from New South Wales, second-hand when they bought it. Increasingly, our members are taking on new forms of work, and they're very happy about that, but they do need the correct equipment to be properly protected if worse comes to worse. And the issues that we have, for example, are burnover protection. So there is some being fitted on some trucks, retrofitted. It's not an ideal situation. It's very slow and there's been a real problem. So all the trucks that were fitted have had to be recalled and refitted. And because the fleet doesn't have many, if on some days any, spares, it means that either vehicles have to be taken offline and or it's taking an extensive period for this work to be done.
Now, I remember speaking to you the other week and you mentioned something about the hoses and having to have a manual crank for these hoses. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. For example, there was a crew that were defending successfully, I'm glad to say, quite a range of homes up at Woodside last year. What happened with them, their truck is old and their fuses keep going. And so without the fuses operational, high pressure hoses had to be manually wound up, which impeded their ability to move out the way quickly or to move on to the next areas that needed assistance. A similar matter happened where there was a structure fire and the firefighters were told that there were people inside. They had problems whereby the pump wouldn't operate. So that made it an extremely difficult situation. I'm glad to have heard that the people in the building actually did manage to get out. And so the firefighters were hugely relieved about that. But you can imagine the stresses on them when they're turning up, they're told people are at risk and they can't operate their equipment. And that's a relatively regular matter. And the firefighters know that if they put their truck in to be repaired, the likelihood is at the moment that they get something that is of a lesser standard than the one that they're putting in to be fixed. It's just unacceptable.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That was Arj chatting with Max Adlam from the United Firefighters Union about the ongoing strike at the MFS. If you want to get behind our fireys, head to change.org and sign their petition. Just search United Firefighters Union of SA to find it.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength with David and Hamish this evening, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. So, last year wasn't the best for Adelaide's bars, clubs and pubs, to say the least.
No, not at all. But despite the challenges, we've seen a bunch of brand new venues pop up all over the city in the last few months.
Yeah, that's right. And we wanted to meet a few of the minds behind these new spaces and to see how they're tracking. First up, Jamie spoke with Wilson from The Good Gilbert and Olivia from Lock.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Hey Wavo friends! Today's segment was really fun to do as I spread far and wide in search for Adelaide's coolest new venues around town. Over the past week, I got to interview 3 new hotspots, including the Good Gilbert in Goodwood, Lock in the CBD, and the Lab in Light Square. Let's get right into it. Firstly, I interview Wilson from the Good Gilbert, an absolute legend. I'm here interviewing you at the Good Gilbert, which is a new venue in Adelaide.
Certainly is.
No, thanks for having me. I mean, it's also like my favourite new local.
GG's is a beautiful location opposite Heritage Listed Capri Theatre, about a corner of Goodwood Road and Gilbert Street. GG's is kind of inspired to be a beautiful neighbourhood hangout, you know, having spent a lot of time living in Europe, something that was always everywhere where we lived, was beautiful little spots that you could slip down to after work or on your way home and have a drink. And that's kind of where we felt Goodwood could really benefit from, is having a beautiful little corner situation venue that allowed people from anywhere to come in and hang out. You can have a glass of burgundy, you can have a coffee, you can have some anchovies on toast, or you can have some pasta.
So, wine bar, what's your specialty?
No specialty. I think, you know, being a neighbourhood space, we never wanted to pigeonhole ourselves into a single style or a single product. It's constantly evolving and changing. Every week we're buying different wines.
Cool.
It's pretty uncommon for us to buy anything that's the same twice in a row. You know, and a big part of that is, again, being that accessible venue where people can come in, and we have a lot of regulars like yourself that want to have a chance to try something different, something that's unusual and quirky and fun, but ever evolving. And it allows us to tailor the menu on a week-to-week basis. We're owner-operated. We've had zero financial support from anyone but our dear old bank account.
So what's it been like being a new independent business owner in the big bad world?
It's been full on. This is the 3rd business that I've opened in 12 months. It's been fun. It's daunting, but it's been great. It's a real sense of creative freedom. You know, it's been a great opportunity for all of us. We've got these big, beautiful ideas to kind of flex them in an environment environment that's safe and secure, and the fact that we are changing the menu on a weekly basis means if it doesn't work, it's fine. Currently we're open Wednesday through Sunday, Wednesdays to Thursdays for free. We open up at midday on Fridays and Saturdays, and then 11 on Sundays. So till 1 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays.
If you could describe your venue in 3 words, what would they be?
Pretty quaint and unperfect. But like food and wine, I guess, it's very subjective and it's each to their own. We want people to feel that this is their space, and they can envisage it however they want. They can describe it however they want. It's not a wine bar, it's not a restaurant, it's not a cafe, it's whatever you need it to be.
Next up, I interview Olivia from Lock in the CBD. We're here at Lock, which is in the east end of the city. Tell us a little bit about your venue and introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me. My name's Olivia. The venue Lock has kind of come from initially a website that I started during COVID doing wine delivery based on all organic farming. So that's kind of wines largely from small producers that have not been kind of tampered with. And then the bar's going to come as a result of that. I noticed that people were going back out again in Adelaide. We were lucky that COVID kind of settled down a bit. Always really wanted to have a bottle shop, like a takeaway license. And this was probably the more achievable version of that. Our kind of ongoing is wine bar snack. So charcuterie, cheese, just everything under $10, just small plates. But what I'm trying to focus on is doing pop-ups and, one-off nights where we do like tacos or pasta night or that kind of thing. We'll kind of start during Fringe, having some fun things at the weekend. Outside's where everyone loves sitting during summer, hoping to get some eating options over winter. But it's a beautiful space. Like it looks over onto the kind of greenery of High Marsh Square. So amazing thing for me is that people come in and they say sort of a real European vibe. The feedback and the just comments or general support from other business owners, especially in this industry, has been ridiculous. And I'm so thankful for that.
Can you describe the venue in a couple of words for me?
Intimate, pared back, relaxed.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That was Jamie speaking with Wilson from the Good Gilbert and Olivia from Lock. Really exciting that these two new venues have popped up in the wake of COVID.
Yeah. I mean, these guys are just so ballsy, I think. Like, the idea of starting a new business in a post-COVID world, especially in the hospitality industry, I'll be honest with you, that scares the living shit out of me. So these guys are really brave and really ballsy, and I just really commend them for going out there and, giving it a go.
And doing something different. I've been to both of these places over the last couple of months.
Yeah, okay.
It's awesome. One, that the Good Gilbert is like a suburban bar.
Yeah.
And there's there's not enough of those.
There's not enough of them. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Apart from like local pubs, but there's not enough like bars.
Yeah, hip joints.
Yeah.
Haven't been around for the last 100 years.
Yeah, exactly. And then Lock also is really good. I was there last night, just the best wine. Absolutely incredible. And not expensive either. And it doesn't have a pretentious vibe. If you're looking to have a good bottle.
That's such a rare combo.
Yeah,
such a rare combo.
Great music, great
good
people.
wine, cheap and unpretentious.
That's it.
Wow, that's a killer combo. That's a trifecta.
It's really just ideal. Anyway, later in the show, we're going to be speaking with the minds behind an exciting new venue in Adelaide called The Lab. But next, Hamish will let you know what the hell has been going on this week. You're listening to Fresh.
What the hell is going on this week? Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
The biggest headline that came out of the tail end of this week was, without a doubt, the 5-day circuit breaker in Victoria as they battle growing case numbers of the highly infectious UK strain. It's believed that this is how Premier Daniel Andrews chose to open his press conference.
This is an historic and proud day.
Just kidding. What could be called an historic and proud day, however, was the day Collingwood President Eddie Maguire finally decided to call it quits, immediately stepping down from his role in the wake of his now infamous comments about the club's systemic racism report. And speaking of career-ending reports, an inquiry into Crown Resorts, one of the biggest casino operators in the country, found that the firm has clear connections to organised crime syndicates, while the rest of the public had to pretend that they weren't already completely aware of this. Former President Donald Trump's impeachment trial got underway, where he seemed to have hired the real-life equivalent of Lionel Hutz as his legal representative.
I move for a bad court thingy.
You mean a mistrial?
Yeah. That's why you're the judge and I'm the law-talking guy.
No one was prepared for his lawyers to be quite this bad, despite his last one fighting in a courtroom and holding a press conference outside a sex shop. Pete Evans made an announcement no one wanted to hear, that he's considering a career in politics, as if having to deal with Pauline Hanson wasn't enough. It's reported that fellow conspiracy theorist Craig Kelly is already saving a seat for him on the backbench. And a lawyer in America became heavily distressed when he accidentally applied a cat filter to his face during a virtual courtroom appearance, desperately confirming to the judge that he was not, in fact, a cat.
Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings.
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
And that's what the hell's been going on this week.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you very much for that, Hamish. That was absolutely hilarious. What a week. What?
Yeah,
so bizarre.
That was a real weird one.
Yeah.
And the stuff with COVID, I mean, that really sucks.
Absolutely. Sending our love to Melbourne listeners. Maybe you can listen to Fresh.
Yeah.
During lockdown.
Absolutely. That's an idea. Get the app on and just crank it and we'll keep the tunes coming.
Absolutely we will. Apart from that, though, there's a lot of good lawyer news.
Yeah, a lot of good legal news.
A bit of a legal heavy week.
Yeah.
Trump's old lawyer farted. What? Can you tell me more? That's so ridiculous.
I'm so immature. I still love fart jokes so much.
Everyone does.
But Rudy Giuliani was Donald Trump's lawyer all throughout his presidential campaign. And there was footage of him in a courtroom and he was presenting some kind of case or whatever, and the microphone picked him up farting. And he kind of just continues carrying along as if no one has noticed when everyone has clearly noticed.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Could only happen to
Trump.
Yeah.
Only Trump.
Could only happen to him. Well, thank you for bringing us the weird and wonderful news of the week.
Anytime.
Wavelength.
Before the break, we heard from Wilson from The Good Gilbert and Olivia from Locke.
But there's another really interesting venue opening in Adelaide very soon. You might have seen some stuff about it around. It's called The Lab. And it looks like it's going to be unlike anything else we've got in Adelaide at the moment.
To find out all about it, Jamie spoke with Anne.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
And last but not least, we have The Lab, the newest venue opening up in Light Square.
Well, hi, I'm Anne Weiberg. I'm the head of programming for Light Adelaide, which is a new multi-arts, multi-genre venue complex that we are opening. So The Lab is the first thing that opens. Kind of where it all came from was a couple of people who are philanthropists from South Australia are very keen to give back to the arts industry here. In South Australia, obviously, lots of people have suffered, lots of artists have lost work over the last 12 months because of COVID. Also coming up with a different way of producing and presenting shows was a really key element of this whole new venture. So rather than just having a venue for hire, another band venue or whatever, we want to do things really differently. We curate everything, so there's going to be anything from digital art to music to theatre, might even be spoken word, it could be DJs and mixing things up. So whenever we open the venue to the general public, we're also going to have this amazing technology in the space, which nobody else has in South Australia. So it's these LED screens, so 50 square metres of them, that will be permanently placed in the venue, be immersed in this technology and surrounded by these screens, which are pretty unique. Every artist who's kind of used to doing certain things in a certain way, we want to bring them into the venue and go, here's a platform, here's a canvas, do something different and see what you come up with. A couple of weeks later, we'll open up the restaurant, Aurora, which will host amazing chefs and amazing food, and eventually want to do some things together as well. Hospitality and the arts have kind of suffered the most out of most industries over the years, so we really want to support the culture of both of those industries and bring them together. And the idea is that we also host some events that might happen in the restaurant, or we might have some food elements in the lab stuff that we do. So it's all up for kind of us being creative and seeing what we come up with. But that's not all. So once we've done the bottom floor, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have another venue upstairs, which will have a much bigger space, so up to 600 to 800 capacity audiences. And we will then have more of the screens. So there'll be like a surround setup with screens, with more kind of technology.
So what other kind of shows can we expect to see over the next couple of weeks? Are you doing fringe immersion shows?
I really wanted to make sure that we support the South Australian arts industry as much as possible in our programming. So 100% of the program is South Australian artists. We've got an Adelaide Fringe show that's starting up in a couple of weeks. So that's the Deep North, and that's an African-Australian musical. On top of that, we've also got local bands that are doing solo shows, and the idea is that if you come to the lab, you can just come see the show, do the hour in there, go back to the bar. Maybe if there's another show later on, you can go back and see another show. But it's kind of programmed so you don't have to stay in the venue the whole night. You can kind of, come and go a little bit, giving it a bit of a different flavour to what you'd expect on another venue. Starting this thing called the Lab Rats. Artists who are interested in using the technology and getting together with other artists with similar ideas or skills, or wanting to kind of create things with the LED screens. The other thing we're starting is called the Burner. So Burner's going to be a series which we get an artist to curate. It's on a Saturday afternoon, maybe sort of on the jazz kind of side. Jazz, it might be funk, soul, R&B, that kind of genre. And we literally say to an artist, you've got 1 or 4 days. You get to program those shows. I think what I'm most excited about too is just seeing what happens over the next few months. We have no idea. None of us have done this before, so it's pretty terrifying and exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
To see once we open the doors, what works, what doesn't work. So the whole idea of the lab is to be a space that we can all have a bit of freedom to try new things.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That was Jamie speaking with Anne from the lab. And man, Hamish, that sounds like an incredible new venue.
Yeah, seriously. I know some of the listeners probably thought I was being a bit over the top, saying it was unlike anything we've got in Adelaide at the moment. But seriously, am I wrong? Go have a look at some of the photos of this place online. It looks amazing. Yep. And those LED screens, insane. It provides such a cool backdrop. You've really got to see it to kind of fully appreciate it, but it just looks so unique, so original. It's got this really cool kind of cyberpunk vibe to it.
Totally.
It's awesome.
I just am so happy that there's some sort of new space in Adelaide that has the ambition to do all these crazy things. Yeah. They want it to be like an audiovisual space, an art gallery, a place for DJs, a place for live music, a place for hospitality and eating and drinking. And it just seems like exactly what we need in Adelaide at the moment.
100%. It just seems like it's going to be a one-stop shop for everything arts and culture related in this city, which is awesome because there's so much of it out there and it deserves a space like this to showcase it.
Totally. And what's also really impressive, I think, is their dedication to having a South Australian program. Yeah. South Australian artists at the forefront of everything, 100%. Which is so awesome.
Yeah,
and
love that.
Thank you so much for that chat, Jamie, and getting to know a bit more about the lab. And if you're keen to check it out, it had a sold-out opening first weekend.
No surprise.
No surprise.
Yeah, that's awesome. So congratulations.
I mean, if you want to head along soon, I'd recommend getting some tickets to whatever they've got coming up because it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And I think it's selling out pretty fast.
Yeah, definitely. No surprise.
Anyway, next, Wavelength explains the very juicy Funtea saga.
Wavelength.
So, David, you probably saw some stuff around about that mini brawl in Funtea a couple of weeks ago.
I sure did. It was sort of inescapable online.
Yeah, it really kind of just blew up, didn't it? And it really was just everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And the story kind of just evolved and went in all these different little tangents. And
I know, there's so many different angles to go with it.
100%. So the facts around it have understandably been a little bit dicey. So I really wanted to kind of dig deep and get to the bottom of it. So this week, Wavelength explains everything to do with the Funtea fiasco.
Wavelength explains on Fresh 92.7.
If you've been following the news even a little in the last week, you've probably heard about the now infamous Funtea incident. But what actually happened and what's transpired since? If you haven't seen the footage yet, you can find it online, but the original viral video shows a female employee of the bubble tea store allegedly being assaulted by Gavin Guo, who we now know is an associate of the business owner, Jason Duan. After translating the conversation between the three of them, we know the young woman was arguing about an alleged wage dispute. Soon after the video's circulation, crowds of people protested outside the storefront while Mr. Guo was charged by police and is expected to front a judge in April. The protests sparked a new debate about the exploitation of vulnerable workers like migrants and international students. Mr. Duan initially denied the claims of underpayment but has since admitted in an interview that he was only paying the worker $10 an hour, less than half the minimum wage. He also detailed how he now fears for his life, facing death threats and having his store broken into. But who's the real victim here? Dr. Catherine Christ, a researcher on modern slavery, says that this case is just the tip of the iceberg. She confirms how commonly international workers take cash in hand for employment, as visa holders are only allowed to work a select amount of hours each week. But this opens things up for widespread exploitation, with bosses holding their workers in a vice-like grip where they can't quit for fear of unemployment, but they also can't report them to authorities as they themselves will be exposed. Fair Work is investigating the allegations against Funtea, but how many more businesses are out there operating under these same conditions, especially in these communities? And how can we educate those coming to SA about their working rights? New legislation is clearly needed and the ATO needs to take a more proactive approach. But until more victims come forward, it seems like real change is still a while away.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That there was Hamish, who I've got with me, explaining the Funtea saga, which you probably saw all over social media in the last couple of weeks. Thank you so much for the explainer.
No problem.
Like you said, absolutely just feels like the tip of the iceberg for the sort of exploitation of migrant international student workers who are on visas, which means they can't work like a full 40-hour week or anything, and they get underpaid too.
Wavelength.
Right now, we've got our favourite weekly segment called Heaps Good News. This week, Arj has got the goods for us.
I know there's gonna be
Heaps Good News on Wavelength.
It's that time of the show again, Heaps Good News, where amongst all the doom and gloom of the world, we go out and try and find something fun and positive to talk about. A Brisbane family of 3 have been given an extraordinary gift. The Metro family had spent the last 3 years living in a small town in Italy. However, following the COVID-19 pandemic, they were desperate to return to Australia. The one small problem was that they would be rushing back to a home which had no furniture, the family having sold it all before departing for Italy. However, a friend of the family, Naomi Dorland, took to a Buy Nothing, Sell Nothing Facebook group and put the call out. The family were inundated with donations including beds, tables and even 2 laptops. And finally, to round this off, a dog in the US, Lulu, has recently become a newly minted millionaire. That's right, Lulu, former owner, has made the Border Collie a millionaire after they gifted the pooch with the dough in their last will and testament. The dog will remain in the care of her current caretaker, Martha Burton, with the $5 million set aside to take care of any and all of Lulu's needs. The estate is currently in probate and it's not yet clear how much it's worth. The will does state, however, that Burton will simply be reimbursed for reasonable monthly expenses to care for Lulu. You know, it really makes you question your value to society when a dog is worth more than you are. Anyway, that's heaps good news for this week.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks for that, Arj. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the show tonight. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much. Make sure you subscribe to the Wavelength podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can listen back to our old episodes right now and you'll be the first to know when tonight's episode goes up.
Wavelength.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.